All right, we are live. Hello, everyone who's tuning in. My name is Jessica. I manage the Google Students page on Google+. I work on the University Programs team, and I'm joined today by, again, some of my favorite Googlers who are going to talk a bit about the user experience teams at Google. So we're going to do introductions, and this is my coworker Hal, who's going to tell you a little bit about himself first.
Hi, my name is Hal Mars, and I'm on the University Programs team, and my client manager is User Experience.
So let's hear from the actual user experience Googlers. Mark, why don't you kick things off and give us an introduction?
How's it going? My name is Mark Hemian. I'm a designer at YouTube, and happy to be here with my lovely giraffe friend.
And where'd you go to school? And tell us a little bit about your path to Google.
Oh, okay. I went to BYU. I studied business there, business information systems. I did a string of startups. My latest one was finally acquired by Google about a year ago, and so I was lucky enough to join Google in January of 2011, and it was a bit of a roundabout circuitous path, but I'm here.
Awesome. All right, Kelsey, why don't you go?
Hi, I'm Kelsey Rushing. I'm a visual designer here at Google, and I currently work with the Chrome Web Store team. I came here through an acquisition. I went to school and got a bachelor's degree and then a design degree and got hired with a startup in Seattle right out of school. And that startup got purchased by Google, so I ended up here and kind of made my own way here, so it's been awesome.
And you're joined by your horse friend behind you.
Yeah, this is a really cool room up in Kirkland that has horses and hay bales, and it's called Galloping Gertie. It's kind of hilarious.
All right, and Doug.
Hi, I'm Doug. I'm a user experience researcher here at Google. I work on the Google Analytics team. My path here, I went to Wichita State University for my undergrad, and I got a BA in psychology there. And then I went to graduate school at Wichita State as well and got my PhD there. And then I think I had the most direct path here while I was in grad school. I did 2 internships at Google, working on the Google TV team and then also working on some of the advertising teams. And so after the internships, I joined Google full-time.
Great. Well, we're glad to have all of you here. Mark, it sounds like you're already multitasking, working and talking to us at the same time.
Hi.
What Googlers do best, right? Well, let's get started and talk to some of our Googlers here. We have Doug, Kelsey, and Mark. Hal, you want to start off with the first question?
Sure. So just basically in general, we wanted to know what the user experience teams do here at Google. Mark, do you want to start that question?
Yeah, definitely. Our primary objective, of course, is always to put the user first. And so within Google, we tend to be the folks really putting ourselves in the mindset of the user and thinking through how they're using our products on a day-to-day basis and how we can make those experiences a lot better. And I look at it as kind of, as we meet with engineering teams and PM teams, they also care a great deal about the user, but sometimes it's up to us to really kind of drive that home. As a designer, we can do that in a lot of ways, and one of the most powerful ways we do that is in mocks and in prototypes. And it's really wonderful to actually put something down on paper, put some pixels on paper, share that with the team, and see, oh, okay, I understand what you're talking about. Design has this really special place, in my opinion, that captures people's imagination and captures people's, motivates teams in a way that words and emails just can't quite do. And so as a designer, we just get that opportunity to kind of create these new experiences and on behalf of our users, and hopefully it's reflected in our products, and hopefully hopefully we're always iterating, we're always pushing forward and trying to do the next great thing. It's kind of a round answer.
So it sounds like you guys are interacting with not just other Googlers who work in user experience. Do you guys want to talk a bit about who else you're working with and sort of what a day in life would look like in terms of interacting with some of those people?
Yeah, sure. I can go first and others can chime in. Every day we work on, typically for me, I work on some pretty big ongoing projects, but at any given moment, for example, this morning I had a series of meetings with different teams talking about different I work on YouTube, and this morning I met with a project manager and engineer from another team working on the TV product, thinking about what are some cool ideas that we can do with YouTube on TV, YouTube on things like Xbox and PlayStation. That's not really typically what I do, but it's really fun to kind of go in and chime in on those ideas and brainstorm on those a little bit. We also meet with our partners. We were just at South by Southwest. We were able to present a talk regarding the design at YouTube. And it's really fun just to interact with YouTube partners and users, get their feedback. And so I look at that as also a part of our job, is kind of listening very closely and hearing their pain points and kind of internalizing those. And hopefully we can build better solutions for them that solve their problems.
That's great. How about, Doug, on the research side of things, who else within Google are you interacting with?
Yeah, I say from a day-to-day job role, I work a lot with other PMs, and then I work with engineers and designers as well. So those are the core people I work with. A lot of my job is trying to just define what we need for our products from our users, as far as the way they naturally behave and the way they want to use our products. And then I have to communicate that back to our teams, whether it's designers, PMs, or engineers, so that they can make better decisions about the way something's designed.
Kelsey, what about you?
Yeah, so I mean, it kind of depends on the project, but the cool thing about design is that you can be helpful in every stage of the project, like from when people think of this idea to when they're actually marketing it out for the real world. So you can work with pretty much anyone on your greater team. And I think of my team, there's the UX team, but there's also the team that you get to work with, and you're pretty much embedded with that team, and you can work really closely with PMs and engineers, anybody that's got a stake in it. You can be working with them and offering ideas and mocking up ideas and discussing things and thinking about how we can make a really good product for the user at the end.
I must say, every time I talk to people in user experience, it makes me wish that I worked in UX, but I'm pretty satisfied in university programs, so we'll just go with that for now. So what about the most interesting project that you guys have worked on to date? I don't know if there's something that stands out in your mind, or maybe a sort of fun moment that you remember working in user experience.
I can kick it off. We recently just redesigned YouTube last year, and by far that was one of the hardest projects I've ever worked on. YouTube gets about 4 billion views a day. 70% of those views are outside of the United States, and so tons of challenges with that. All sorts of devices. As you guys know, not everyone has a mobile phone now, and tablets, and so when you take that all into consideration, you think, how do you design for all these different platforms, all these different languages? Accessibility issues come into play. You put that all together, it's kind of a big hairy mess, and so that was probably the largest challenge to date for me. Next.
I guess I can go next. So I think the most interesting project I've worked on in my time at Google was Google TV. So one thing you'll learn at Google if you ever work here is we have 20% time. So even though most of my time is dedicated to Google Analytics, I do work on other projects. So I was working on the Google TV team, and we were just observing people in their homes and apartments on how they naturally watch TV. And I do a lot of TV watching in my spare time, like most people, probably, or most nerds like me. And so it was just fun to actually get paid and do something that fun, to be able to watch TV with people and just learn how they naturally use Google TV and actually get paid for it.
Did you get observed watching TV as well, or were you just the observer?
I was the researcher on the team, so I was actually observing others how they were watching TV. So I would go into these people's homes and watch how they watch TV, what they do.
Wow.
I
watch a lot of TV.
Yeah, Hal would actually be a really good person to observe. The amount of TV he watches is kind of ridiculous. That's why we love him. What about you, Kelsey?
Yeah, I remember this question from our blog, and it was really, really tough to just pick one thing, because pretty much, well, I would say every project is really interesting once you dig into it and learn about it and start working with the people who are really, really passionate. But there are two that I can qualify them as more interesting because they're things that I never, ever, ever imagined I would be doing. One was just being able to travel to the Zurich office. It was really casual. It was like, hey, we have this project. Do you guys want to help? And, within a couple weeks I was traveling to Zurich and seeing that amazing office. So that was definitely very interesting. Another one was for a promo, like a marketing thing, with celebrity photos for their Google Plus pages. So I got to edit their photos, and it was one step between me and a bunch of celebrities of like thumbs up, thumbs down, change this. It was really interesting to.
Oh my gosh, no pressure. You're
give me
like
a good idea of how big Google really is.
yeah,
really.
that's great.
Well, what did you guys study in school to kind of prepare you for the world of user experience? Mark, do you want to start off?
Yeah, I graduated in 2000, so from 97 to 2000 I was in school, and I got to tell you, for the work that I did, I had a minor in graphic design just because I've always been passionate about design, but there really just wasn't a nice structure around web development, web product development, and of course mobile really wasn't even a thing back then. And so what I decided to do while I was at school, I did two things. One, I did a study abroad in London to just study humanities. I figured, you know what, I just want to enrich myself with just kind of with the literature, art, and I go back to that all the time. And just recently when I took a similar trip to Kelsey, I was in Paris for one of these fun projects. It's kind of crazy. They're like, hey, you're going to Paris in a few weeks. Like, okay, sure.
Whatever. Don't have to ask me twice.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so while I was in Paris, obviously visiting all the museums and all the great things that are in Paris, and I'm just awestruck by we have such a rich artistic history, and I feel like as designers, at least right now, everyone is looking at each other's work online on Dribbble, and there tends to be a lot of a lot of looking glass self. You see one design, and then you see something that's a bit iterative, and something that's a bit more iterative. To really get some kind of original thought on things, I really feel like you got to kind of deep dive way back. And so I really rely a lot on the humanities work, which is a bit of an odd resource for inspiration. That, and coupled, when I was in school, I also joined a startup while I was in college. I don't know if that was the best thing to do or not, but I was also working quite a bit just with what I loved. I wasn't getting the right education from where I went to school, so I decided to find it on my own in a startup. Don't recommend that for the faint of heart. Still trying to catch up on sleep to this day. So there you go.
All right.
Great. How about Doug?
Going to school, I studied psychology, and I think that's kind of where I got my start in terms of going to a human factors program at Wichita State. And so I studied a lot of classes there just on human behavior and the way we naturally think cognitively. And I think that's helped me a lot in my transition at Google as far as like understanding our users and how they naturally behave when I'm observing them. As far as the most applicable classes I took in grad school, I took a lot of classes on human-computer interaction and also related to human factors. And I was actually in a lab called the Software Usability Research Lab, the SURL Lab, working under the direction of Dr. Barbara Shaparo. And the great benefit of working at that lab was that we got a lot of contract work with other companies to do usability testing for them. And so that really got my feet wet as far as how to do usability testing and user research, and really helped me with my transition to my 2 internships at Google. And so then once I came here at Google, it was just a natural fit for me to do user research here based on my academic background.
Awesome.
And if you guys could go back to your education, is there like a certain class you wish you could have taken, or if you could have done something outside of class that would have helped prepare you? Is there anything that comes to mind as like, I wish I could have done that or taken that class?
I can jump in there. So my thing is that the program I took after I got my bachelor's degree was really intense, 2 years, amazing, amazing teachers, just pros. And I still keep in contact with them, and I still know people going through the program, and they're always updating their classes, and they're always offering new things that just make me so jealous. Like, if I weren't working full-time, I wish I could just keep going back every year and take all those new classes. Like, I know right now they're learning how to design and build iPad apps. So I'm sure next year they'll do something even cooler. So it's hard to say. But, yeah, anyway, if I had to pick just one, I'd say probably HTML5, because that was just coming out of the woodwork when I graduated, and everybody knew it was going to be a big thing, and it's something that I don't find myself seeking out necessarily, but if I were in a class and had teachers scaring me into it, it would be really helpful for me.
Mark or Doug?
Yeah, I think just for me, since I came from a social science background and studied a lot more psychology and human factors, what I would like is more just computer science classes, just in general. I took a few as an undergrad and as a grad student, but I don't think nearly as enough to have a deep understanding that I would need here at Google sometimes, just to understand what some of our engineers or project managers are trying to communicate to us. So I think just in general, like if you are in a social science background, like as far as psychology or whatever, try to make sure you take computer science classes along with them.
Good advice.
Great. Well, I had a question. This is a really hard question. So what do you love most about working at Google?
Besides the giraffe?
Second to the giraffe. What comes second?
Well, there's also a slide outside of my window.
Okay, so beyond the slide and the giraffe.
One of the I don't know if I really got into this so much into the blog, but one of the things that we talked about when our startup was getting acquired was this idea of freedom. You know, Google's this big, it's a huge company, and as a startup person, it's in your DNA to want to have control and to want to have to kind of control your destiny on what you're building. And so my initial reaction was like, oh my gosh, I mean, that's amazing that Google wants to acquire us, but we're just going to get gobbled up into this large company and not have any freedom or anything. And I've been completely surprised when we got acquired. Our team stayed together, and it was funny because we kind of were walking around the halls like, so what should we work on? And everyone's like, what do you want to work on? And we're like, wait, what do you mean? We like, sure. What do you want to build? Build something cool. And it was great. The first few months, our team was literally left to our own devices, and it was this fun little laugh. And what's crazy though is when you launch something at Google, or in my case YouTube, you just have Insta crowd, hundreds of millions of people using and experimenting with what you're doing. So those two combinations are really what I love. We have a ton of freedom here, and then just the impact. It is really hard to wrap your head around the amount of impact the work that you do, and that's what I really, really love.
Kelsey?
Yeah, so I figured out a tricky way to answer this question because it really is tough. So one word kind of sums it all up for me of what's my favorite thing about working here. It's the culture, and that kind of encompasses just people here are ridiculously nice, like just beyond belief. Everyone is so nice and very, very passionate about what they're doing and just absolute rock stars at their jobs and yet very humble about it. So that's really, really great to be working with so many amazing people and be able to get along with them like friends. That's really cool. And then obviously, the opportunities for different projects to bump around and learn new things and work with new people and travel all over the world to work with those people. It's just, like, the culture is very, like, you hear about like giraffes and slides and all that good stuff, but like there's a real deep feeling of like happiness. Like you should be happy here and you should work with really great, nice people and do things you love doing. It's just like, it seems to be something that the company really cares about for each employee. So I love it.
And Doug?
Wow. How do I follow up those answers? I don't know if I can. So, and I think Mark read my answer on the blog, and that was like verbatim what I put. So, anyway, like I guess just off the top of my head, some of the stuff I love is this. The fact that I get to work on complex projects and things that really challenge me as far as what I'm trying to do as a researcher. You're really left to your own devices as how to do things as far as what you're going to research and how you're going to research it. And I love the fact that we have that freedom and just the ability to do things your way is what I really like about Google.
Cool. Those are some great answers. So we're actually going to shift gears for just a minute, and Hal's going to talk a little bit about what current opportunities are available for students who are interested in maybe studying user experience, what opportunities we have available at Google, and then we're going to go into rapid fire answering the questions that we got from you guys, our fans and followers on the Google Plus page. So Hal, why don't you go into a little bit about what the process is, what opportunities are available?
Sure. So currently we're looking for user experience internships. They could be designers or internships in research. And it's really easy to apply. You just go to google.com/students, and you can look for all the different openings right there, and you can apply right online. And one word of advice I'd love to give out to the designers out there is to really make sure that you include a link to your online portfolio, because that way the recruiters and actually UX folks can go ahead and look at your online portfolio and assess that way. And these positions are located all around. A lot of positions are here in Mountain View. And you could work with Doug, because Doug works in Mountain View. Or you can work in YouTube with Mark, or in Seattle with Kelsey. And we also have positions in New York. So
cool. So yeah, sorry.
Can I add to Hal's point?
Yeah.
On the portfolio piece, please, 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 that's all I look at. I interview tons of folks. It's the first thing I look at. If there is no portfolio, I hate to say it, I don't even look at your resume, which is probably bad. I'm probably getting in trouble from
Mark's not a recruiter, though.
I'm not a recruiter, but even if you don't have any, that's where previously when I was alluding to kind of picking, make a Reddit Craigslist or something, just something, have something in there, please, because there's some wonderful, I get a resume and I can tell there's this wonderful education and there's no work, and it just breaks my heart, because I know they're probably really cool and really smart and really wonderful, but there's no pixels. So I'm sorry, Hal, I just wanted to drive the point home.
So we've learned it's important to include your portfolio for the UX design internship.
Definitely.
Cool. Okay, so we're going to start in with these questions that we've gotten from those of you who are tuning in now, hopefully. The first question from Tristan. He asks, just thinking about having an opportunity at Google is intimidating. What kind of criteria are you looking for within students? So Hal, maybe from a recruiter standpoint, you can just add a few notes about that.
Sure. Well, first of all, you should never really feel intimidated by applying for any job at Google. We've all made it here. We come from a variety of backgrounds. We take students and industry folks from all walks of life, from all different majors. So you should never feel intimidated. You should definitely apply. For design roles, we really look for students studying HCI, interaction design, visual design, or a related field. Even computer science would be helpful too, because we really wanted to review the design work in your resume. You should have experience with HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, which is you should also have a strong technical background. For the user research roles, you should have some experience in school or an internship doing actual research itself, so the recruiters really look for that experience as well. That's
great. That answers that question. Let's go to the next one. So Amik on Google Plus is very curious about how the UX team approaches scalability. And I know this is something I think Mark brought up pretty early in this conversation. Is there a lot of thought put into how a product or design will scale vertically and horizontally before the process of designing begins? Just talk, maybe Mark and maybe Doug want to talk a little bit about scalability on the UX side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. One of our challenges at YouTube is we offer YouTube up in a variety of languages. It's something that's really fun to do, actually. If you go down and switch it to Arabic, the whole site will just flip over. The whole thing. Some really smart engineer flipped everything over. And so how do you design for that? How do you make sure your titles fit and your usernames fit? And so we build a lot of prototypes. We do a lot of what's called dog fooding. We eat our own dog food. And so we'll build a product internally, and we'll just use it, and we'll bang on it. And we'll find people who speak German and Russian, and we'll go down to that language selector, and we'll change it, and we'll see what completely explodes and what is okay. And we just use it quite a bit. I think that's what they were asking about scalability. If they were asking about scalability in the sense of how do you support many, 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 many users, that is also a design consideration. The size of the thumbnails, the amount of data we put on a particular page. You'll notice one of the things on YouTube, we don't actually have avatars next to people's names. There's a couple reasons for that. The biggest one is spamming. If there's spam issues, people abuse those avatars. The second issue is that's a lot of page load. When you're serving up tons and tons of pages, that's kind of one of the things. Our thumbnails on our right rail, when you watch a YouTube video, they could be a lot bigger, but we have them optimized just right, so that we're not, melting through hundreds of thousands of servers. So those are two scalability things that come into consideration at YouTube.
Great.
I think from a researcher's perspective, when I heard the word scalability, I was more thinking about our user types and the different types of users that use our products. So a lot of research goes into researching the type of users that use whatever product we're investigating. And so we do a lot of field work, going out, talking to the users, a lot of survey work, finding out the type of users as well. And then we really communicate those back to the team in the exploratory research that we do to make sure that our products scale for any type of user that's going to use them. And anybody can take advantage of the products that we build.
Cool. Okay, here's a question from Josh on Google+. He asked, what comes first or what wins between back-end technology of a product and the UX? Kelsey, maybe you can answer this?
Yeah. Hi, Josh. So this is a really good question because it gives me a chance to kind of explain how Eng and design work together. And that's one of the awesome things about being kind of embedded in a team with a bunch of engineers, is that you don't have to have a winner. You can always butt heads as much as you want, and no one's going to hate each other for it. That's kind of the fun of coming to work every day, is that you can discuss the limitations and the magical things that certain people want to do and whether or not it's possible, and hear all the reasons why, and you can really kind of take everyone's knowledge and work together. And at the end, I think the winner is a really good combination of everyone's ideas and thoughts behind stuff, and you come out with the best possible product.
Great. Let's get to another question. This is from Nathaniel on Google+. How does Google test UX with mobile apps? I know you often use A/B testing, so maybe Mark, you can answer that?
Yeah, you bet. So we've had a huge number of increase of mobile use for YouTube. And it was interesting that just this past week when we were at South by, we asked the crowd, how many folks in the last 6 hours watched a video on their phone or tablet? I mean, everyone in the audience. It was like 300 people. It was crazy. And so this is kind of front and center of what we're exploring, and our UX research folks are definitely spending a lot of time, watching how people use video on their device. How do they browse it? Is it better to have thumbnails in a grid, in a list? Do they like to swipe? I alluded to dog fooding a little bit earlier, and so we have iPhones inside here. We have Android devices. We have tablets. We have iPads. We have everything you can imagine. And at any given time, you can pick one of these up and see a random build from an engineer and just play. And that's what we do. And then we eventually will release it to all of Google internally, which is tens of thousands of folks. I don't know what their number is nowadays, 25,000-ish. And Googlers are wonderful dog fooders. They're very opinionated, and so we get just a flood of feedback. Something's broke, we'll figure it out pretty quick. But that's kind of how we do it. It's not. I wish it was more scientific. It's not. It's pretty messy. We build it. We put it on an iPhone. We play with it. We break it. We fix it. We do it all over again. So that's about it.
Well, that's a good answer, I'd say. We're actually out of time, and it looks like another Googler's trying to steal your room, Mark. So we're going to, little does he know he's starred in this hangout. But we'll get to the rest of the questions, hopefully, in one of our Google Plus posts. So for those of you who asked questions, thank you. We'll get those answered and send them out hopefully sometime today. Thanks for tuning in, and again, we'll be uploading this video to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Google Students. If you want to apply for a UX internship, those can be found on our student job site, google.com/students.